Okay, we've got Jackie, pronouns he, him, calling in from myceliar.
Ooh.
So I don't want to, I was going to default to scrotum, but I feel like that's an easy one. Mycelium snails. We're talking about mushrooms turned into the shape of gastropods here. We're talking about eye stalks on mushrooms. It's a bad time. Jackie was going to talk about the contingency argument as an evidence for the existence of God. Jackie, you are on the line with Jesse and Forrest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Never had a bad day.
So basically what I would like to be presenting is what's known as the contingency argument, which is a variation of the cosmological argument. Some people say it's a variation of the ontological argument, but it's basically an evidence or a logical deduction that a God must exist. We'll put aside the question about the God of any specific religion, but we'll just focus on whether or not broadly a God exists. So are you familiar with the contingency argument or the proof of the truthful?
Nope. So a couple of things. You said it's a variation of the ontological argument and the cosmological arguments. Those are ones that I am kind of familiar with, but I need to be reminded. Is it worth the time to go through what those are, or does your argument stand on its own 2 feet and we can just deal with it?
The argument stands on its own. I'll just provide a syllogism and we'll see what you have to say and respond to it.
I've got my notebook.
Okay. So basically the argument you're familiar with set theory and all that?
Vaguely. Is it super important?
So basically the argument goes like this. The sum of all contingent things must be contingent on something that is not itself contingent, because if the sum of all contingent things, which is the set, is contingent on something which itself is contingent, the contingent thing would have to include in set. That's logically impossible. So therefore, whatever the sum of all contingent things is contingent on has to be contingent on an uncontingent thing. So sort of something that itself has to exist necessarily that is not contingent on something else to exist. It is outside of the set of contingent things. And the second part is everything which has been observed within the natural universe is contingent. As say, its identity is contingent on the reformation of existing material, energy, etc., into its current identity. Therefore, because everything in the natural universe which has been observed is contingent, the sum of all things in the natural universe is contingent, and whatever it's not contingent on, or whatever it's contingent on that itself is uncontingent, is God.
So well, Jackie, I'll be honest with you. I'm really disappointed. I got my whiteboard and my pen out, and you literally just gave us the prime mover argument as if it was a new thing. Like the whole argument is for every effect there's a cause, and therefore there must be one effect for which there must be one cause which is causeless. There must be one uncaused thing, and that's God. That's the whole argument. It's the same thing that we get all the time, and just with the word contingent in it 50,000 times. How is that any different than whenever a theist calls in and says the universe can't make itself, therefore God made the universe?
Well, because it's like I said, it's most people classify it as a variation of the cosmological argument.
It's not a variation; it's a different wording. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing.
But yeah, that's basically the syllogism of everything is contingent. Whatever it's contingent on can't be contingent itself. Therefore, the one thing that's uncontingent, would be God.
Okay, that's a bad argument, and it was a bad argument before you changed the word, cause to contingency. It's the exact same thing. That's one that's been talked about and debated and argued and debunked and just like a million and one times.
What's the flaw in the syllogism that I provided?
Jesse, do you want to go first? You want me to?
Yeah, I'm going to go first because I'm not as smart as Forrest, and so for the
nonsense.
It's okay that few people are. It's weird. So for the lay people in the audience, I'll jump in. For me, the big flaw in this argument is that everything must have a cause. Everything did have a cause, so what caused everything, right? That's the whole crux of this. And for me, it's just not good enough to say that it was God. It's not good enough to say that it was a European man with a beard that hates it when dudes kiss each other. And that's what it always boils down to. I recognize that we're dealing with a more esoteric, broader interpretation of the prime mover argument here. but it's just because we may not know exactly what caused everything doesn't mean we get to insert something. So, Forrest, why don't you jump in, because that's just where my untrained brain was taking me.
Yeah, for me, it's just like it's one of those like kind of platitude, like a truism where you just it's if you want to say, well, there has to be something that didn't have a cause, something that didn't have a contingent a factor, or whatever like that, and therefore it's God. You could literally just replace the word God with literally anything else, anything at all, and you would have the exact same argument, and it would mean the exact same nothing, because a logical syllogism that like kind of uses a faulty premise, number one, because we don't know about like the beginning of the universe or anything like that. But even if we did, and even if that was true, that's not actual evidence. That's not actually anything that's testable or verifiable. That's not anything that actually demonstrates the existence of a guy that is named God. For all we know, this universe could be a dream. For all we know, this could be, we could be a brain in a vat just thinking that we're experiencing it. It doesn't solve the problem of hard solipsism nor anything else, any of these other ridiculous, non-falsifiable things. It doesn't close the door on any of the serious logical problems out there. It's just saying, well, stuff's here, so somebody put the stuff here, and we don't know that that's true or necessary, and it certainly isn't a compelling argument.
Well, do you disagree with the claim, the syllogism, that everything which has been empirically observed and within the natural universe, its identity is contingent on other things?
Yes.
So what has been observed whose identity is not contingent?
I'm not saying there is one thing that has been. I'm saying it hasn't been demonstrated that. So I suppose what your thing was, everything that's been observed has been. My issue is that we haven't shown for sure that to be the case. As far as we know, damn near everything has had a cause, sure. But when we're talking about like the whole universe by itself, we don't know what caused the Big Bang. We don't know where this thing came from. We don't know what that's all about. There's some really cool new data and new arguments that are coming out from the physics community about, instability within tiny quantum fields that make things like the beginnings of a universe possible. If you ask me, I'm not a physicist, I'm a biologist, but like you're talking about a universe coming from nothing. I don't know what nothing is. I've never seen a nothing. I have never run tests on a nothing. To ask what came before the Big Bang doesn't make any sense, because you're talking about the Big Bang as the beginning of all time and space. So to say that there's something that caused the universe and to exist, some contingency outside of the universe, would be to say that there was something that existed in a place that isn't at a time that wasn't. And I don't know what that means. So like you're opening up 50 new logical cans of worms in order to justify the belief, not just in any vague, like, creative factor, specifically a God. And you were careful at the beginning of this call to say that you're not going to pick any one particular God, as if that's really significantly narrowing it down. The fact that it's a God at all, and not any million other bazillion infinite possibilities of a thing that could create a universe, technically, theoretically, in a dream that I had one time, you're still choosing something completely arbitrarily and then saying that it is necessarily the beginning of creation, and that makes no sense.
So just to reiterate your words in a simpler form, just clarify. So
Sure.
You would agree that most things which have been observed are contingent, or their identity is necessarily in a causal relationship. But you don't believe that's true of everything which has been observed?
I don't know for sure if it's true of everything that's been observed. And I can say for sure that it isn't, that I don't think that it's true of everything possible, whether or not that things that have not been observed as well. I don't have a reason to believe that. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying I don't have a reason to believe that.
Yeah, and the second point, fair enough. And the second point you brought up is, well, whatever caused it, how do we know it's God? I mean, I don't understand what entity that is necessary to say its identity is not contingent, that could create the natural universe and temporality. We wouldn't classify as some God, even if it's not the God of specific set of scriptures.
Why would we assume it's an entity?
Universe is? Yeah, exactly. What if the universe is closed instead of flat, and in fact, at a certain point, we'll have a regress and it collapses back in on itself and starts over, and that's been going on for all of eternity. It's just been Big Bang and then Big Crunch and Big Bang and Big Crunch, and there's no such thing as the beginning of time because that's just been going on in perpetuity for all eternity. And so the non-contingent contingency thing is the previous universe. That makes as much sense as what you said.
But then the natural universe would be contingent on itself. And if the natural universe is contingent and the natural universe is contingent on itself, then the thing it's contingent on is contingent. So it would have to be contingent on something else that's contingent.
No, you said that there has to be something that's contingent on itself that has no prior contingency, and that is God. I'm saying, what if it's the universe? Why can't I just plug in universe for God and say the universe has no beginning, it has no creator, everything else has a creator, has a beginning, has a cause, but the universe does not. It makes as much sense as you saying there has to be something without a cause and therefore it's God, and God doesn't have a cause. I can just say the universe doesn't have a cause.
So you would agree that the universe isn't contingent, even though the constituent elements of it, namely matter and how it iterates in the universe, is contingent in terms of the relation of identity, but as a whole, it's not contingent?
No, that's not what I think at all. That's just the argument that I'm giving you as an example as to why your argument is as meaningless as what I'm saying. I don't think that's true, but I do think that just saying I don't know where the universe came from, therefore God, is a bad way of thinking. And that is exactly what you said.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to consider it. I mean, this is so, yeah, if you'd like to know more about this specific argument, just before I wrap up,
I don't.
It's not a good argument.
Anybody else does either. It's just a bad argument because literally all you did was state the Kalam cosmological argument with a new word in it. It's not a variation. You just plagiarized another bad argument. So, like, if you say
this was actually founded by Avicenna.
I don't care who founded it. It's a bad argument. If it was a good argument, it would have changed some minds in the several hundred years it's been around.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand. So what you're saying is it's just too speculative to claim the universe isn't contingent?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying all your argument is that everything has to have a cause, and we can assume that the universe does as well. Sure, I'll agree with you on that. I don't agree with you on that, but for the sake of argument, I'll agree with you on that. And then you're filling in and saying there must therefore be something that does not have a cause. And I certainly don't agree on that. I have no idea what you're talking about with that. And then you're going a step further and saying, and therefore that thing must be God, which is another huge jump that I don't agree with you on. Even if I agreed that the universe had to have a cause, I don't think that it had to be something without a cause. And even if I could say there must be one thing that is without cause, I don't agree that it's a God, because there could be a million different things. And you're just picking one type of thing and saying it's this guy. And it just so happens to be the one in the religious tradition that you happen to believe in. I know you didn't mention it in this call, but we both know that's what you're saying. So, like, you just so happen to have been born into or found in your lifetime the exact interpretation of the exact religious text, which happens to put you in line with the thing that created the universe, which is another ridiculously huge claim, being very specific about things that you don't know about. And you're trying to make this syllogism here as if it justifies making a lot of huge leaps about the nature of reality. And I don't understand why you're comfortable doing that.
And it leads to something that is
it does.
I'm going to jump in real quick,
Yes,
buddy.
please.
No, please. That's the problem, is that we start here, and right, and you're like, yeah, I mean, so everything is contingent upon something else, and therefore a non-contingent agent must have caused everything, right? And let's pretend that we give that to you. You know, what's the next stage in this discussion? And eventually it leads to, yeah, and now women can't vote. So the reason we don't want to give this fucking ground is because it's a more important argument at large than just the start of everything. Because the start of everything, if the start of everything is the guy in the book that I like, and the guy in the book that I like says that gay people can't kiss each other, then all of a sudden it becomes a greater problem. So, which is why I like these questions, but it's also why I refuse to accept that the start of everything, the cause of everything, is the guy in the book that you like.
Well, I believe there's secular arguments for why same-sex relationships are immoral or bad for society at large.
I'm sure you do, and that's why we could smell it on your conversation from the very first words. We're like, yep, we know where this is going, and honestly, I would almost be willing to entertain a talk about that tomorrow on Skep Talk. Depending on how problematic it got. But I got to tell you, man, the Kalam has been whooped pretty bad, and this is just the Kalam with the word contingent in it a lot. And I am no expert on these things, and for me to be able to poke holes in it is pretty embarrassing because I'm not good at this.
Okay.
I would love to hear your discussion about homosexuality tomorrow. If you can you call back in tomorrow for Skep Talk and talk to us for a long time about that?
We'll see. If I could direct you to a resource that has sort of influenced me. So beyond that, St. Thomas Aquinas has been the best, but not just St. Thomas Aquinas. I'd recommend you check out Dr. Stephen C. Meyer. I'm not
going to, for fuck's sake, Stephen Meyer. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not interested in where this came from because it's a bad argument. I'm certainly not interested in what Stephen Meyer has to say because Stephen Meyer he just makes one bad argument on repeat as if it means anything. His one bad argument over and over is you can't have computer code that writes itself, and computer code can't be randomly changed to make new computer programs. Therefore, DNA had to have a writer, and DNA can't mutate to create new animals, so evolution isn't real. And all of that means specifically the Christian God of the Bible is the only option for the beginnings of the universe and beginnings of life. It's a terrible argument. And I have a video on my channel. You can go on, my channel and see. I've got a couple of videos about him. The most recent one is about him and also the rest of the Discovery Institute and also Prager University, where I show he says he goes to this science conference and met this great evolutionary biologist who admitted that evolution doesn't make any sense. And I wrote to that evolutionary biologist, and he explained in a huge detailed letter about all the things that Stephen Meyer said wrong about what he just takes scientists out of context and claims that people are saying things that they're not. He's like Ray Comfort in a lab coat. It sucks. So I don't care what this guy has to say, and I don't care who other people are saying this argument. It's a bad argument, dude. And at the end of the day, I think Jesse hit the nail on
the reason I brought up Stephen Meyer was I just brought him up because he's a big expert on it. I saw him on Jordan's podcast. He sort of was influencing me in terms of the TLEO option argument.
Yeah, Stephen Meyer is an expert on how to make crappy apologetics videos. That's what he does really, really well. That's it. So, if you're talking about, trying to make this a serious discussion, I would recommend leaving him out of it because it's like bringing up Michael Behe. It's like, why? Why would you waste your time tying your argument to somebody who has been so thoroughly excoriated and just, thrown aside by the entire community of people who give a shit about this stuff? And I think what's most important is what Jesse said a second ago, is that at the end of the day, your beliefs lead somewhere. Case in point, Stephen Meyer, who's a part of the Discovery Institute, whose whole job is to publish nonsense about evolution with the end goal of establishing a theocracy. That's their actual goal. So, it leads somewhere. It causes more harm than just the argument itself. That's a problem. So I hope that you call in tomorrow, because we're going to move on to another caller. But I hope you call in tomorrow and tell us about your secular arguments against homosexuality, because I bet you anything. I'll put up $100 here to a charity of my choice that your secular arguments for against homosexuality are some Jordan Peterson level bullshit that don't stand up to any sort of.
I actually really like Jordan Peterson.
We can tell.
We know.
I'm going to move on to the next call. And I hope you call in tomorrow and talk to us about some other stuff.
Okay. Bye.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, like and subscribe, or Jimmy will have to go on a polyamorous dating show to win some prize money.
Wait, I want to do that. So also hit like and subscribe, and then go to patreon.com/calltheline. I was trying to make you laugh and ruin the take. That's why that silly face earlier. If I was on a polyamorous dating show, I would just choose everybody. except Frederick. Leave a comment.